So in our story today, God shows up. But in this story, this is a tale of Abraham, the patriarch, seeing a stranger, welcoming the stranger in, feeding this person, caring for this person, giving himself over, and making the moment that he had a gift for somebody else. And that is where God shows up. If we listen carefully in just a moment as the story begins, we'll hear what I would almost call like an inflection point, a turn, where three strangers are seen. And we start to see God show up after they've been fed, after they've been cared for. God shows up, and God starts to speak directly to this couple and make promises. Wonderful promises. Promises too big to be believed. And in fact, Sarah laughs at it. I ask you today, join with me as we listen to this. Where have you been waiting for God to show up in your life and all the turmoil and chaos that has been our world for these, past few months? Many people are asking, where is God in all this? And today's story has an answer for us, and it's bigger than just God showing up and being present. God acts in miraculous ways. Our story today comes from chapter 18, it's verses 1 through 15. But then we skip ahead to chapter 21 and read the first 7 verses there. And it's because it's the story of the birth of Isaac being the promise that has come to fruition, that is this miracle that is actually taking place, is the culmination of today's story. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men staring near him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed to the ground. He said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant, who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife, Sarah?" And he said, "There, in the tent." And then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure?" The Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old?' Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the set time, I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied, saying, "I did not laugh," for she was afraid. And he said, "Oh, yes, you did laugh." The Lord dealt with Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham gave the name Isaac to his son, whom Sarah bore him. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Now Sarah said, "God has brought laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me." And she said, "Who would ever have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age." Friends, this story is the word of God speaking to us even now. Thanks be to God.